to our 5th episode of What's Up Carmel. We are excited to say that this month's interviewee is Jim Crider. Mr. Crider is currently the city's Director of Administration, where he assists the mayor in managing the day-to-day operations of Carmel. Before accepting this position, Mr. Crider served in the military for 28 years. We are very grateful for his service and very excited to learn more about him.
Okay. All right. Well, hello, Mr. Crider. Thank you for joining us today. We wanted to start it off by, thanking you for your 28 years in service for our country. I am Trevor Tilev, and these are my colleagues.
Hi, I'm Matt.
Hi, Matt.
I'm Claire. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Claire.
Okay, so just to start off, we were wondering if you could talk about your high school experience in Kentucky and how it guided your decision to join the military.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I wasn't expecting that. So it's been a while since I was in high school, but I'm from, as you said, Kentucky, from a really small town way down in the western tip of Kentucky, maybe 45 minutes from the Mississippi River. So from that far end of the state. I remember coming out of high school, one, I was just dead set, and being from around Indiana won't appreciate it, but man, I really wanted to go to the University of Kentucky, which I did go to because I just wanted to go up there and watch basketball. So I did do a lot of that. But besides that, interesting, what I really wanted to do was to be a state trooper. I just thought that Kentucky state troopers, or, for any state trooper, so those guys are just so cool, and so that's what I really thought that I wanted to do. And then when I did get to college at the University of Kentucky, I remember that a friend of mine that I had just met, we were freshmen, and he goes, hey, I got offered this scholarship for ROTC, but I don't really want it. I got to go down there and tell him, because he had a different option. So he said, I got to go down there and tell him that I'm not going to accept it. You want to go with me? And I thought, yeah, sure. I'll just walk down there just to walk across the campus and keep him company. And then that was the first time I'd kind of been into the ROTC department. Again, furthest thing from my mind. Never thought about it. But when I walked in there, I thought, hey, I met a couple of cool guys, and the guy that we talked to was pretty neat. They didn't try to recruit me or anything, but that kind of sparked a little interest. And then in addition to that, in high school, like many young people do, I worked at McDonald's. All of us, we're from a small town, so like everybody in the McDonald's, we all went to high school together. So it wasn't a bad deal at all. We were just kind of hanging out and working. But one of the managers there was in ROTC at a university in that area called Murray State University, if you've heard of that. And he was always coming back, over summer to manage, and was always talking about ROTC, and had his hair cut real short. And I thought, man, that seems kind of cool, but I didn't really want to do it. So it's kind of that experience, and then kind of going down with my buddy. And it's just how life is sometimes. You just kind of stumble into something, and next thing you know, I got interested in it and ended up joining ROTC.
Awesome. And as you said, you went to the University of Kentucky and are a huge basketball fan. So did you play any basketball in high school?
In the backyard. So
Backyard?
Yeah. Our friends played a lot. I was always the guy that, you would try out, and I was like one of the last 3 that would get cut. And so I just wasn't quite good enough, but it was fun. Played a lot and enjoyed it, kind of in the backyard on the court with friends and things like that. But I was not good enough to make the regular team outside of elementary school when we all play, right?
Yeah. So other than working at McDonald's and playing driveway basketball, what were some of your other high school hobbies?
Yeah, I did play football in high school. Probably a lot of the minor injuries that I carry with me to this day started back then, that I've carried my whole life. But did that mostly a lot of sports and hanging out with friends. It wasn't a really unusual high school experience, primarily because it was a small town, and back then, unlike I look at Carmel today, there's so many things to do and whatnot, and places to go. And you've got Indianapolis close by here. I mean, way down in Western Kentucky, we just at the time, there just wasn't a lot down there. So, just kind of typical teenager things, concerts, stuff like that.
Awesome. Changing just change it up a little bit. Could you tell us a little bit more about your position and the responsibilities that fall under the Director of Administration?
Yeah, sure. So interestingly, the Department of Administration is me. So I don't have a lot of people working directly for me, but it's similar to a lot of companies, and even in the military, large organizations will have a chief of staff. And so if you look at the city and think about organizations like, say, the police department, the fire department, the streets, water and utilities, we kind of look at those as kind of our line, or our kind of frontline departments. They are out there. But behind them, supporting them, you have a lot of other departments like human resources, you have engineering, you have Department of Community Services, community relations development, the controller's office, et cetera. So a lot of those are really staff kind of functions. And the mayor counts on me to help manage the staff. And often if there are projects or things that involve 2, 3, 4, 5 departments, he'll give it to me, and then I'll try to bring all the right departments together, organize it, and get us to the right place. So one quick example from a few years ago, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Christkindl Market, even though we missed it last year, but 2017 was the first year that we did it, which is when I arrived here. We'd never done it before, and there was one person hired to run it, but to put that thing together for the first time required the street department to put it together. It required utilities department to help us make sure all the water was there, and the street department also had to help us there. How we're going to figure out how we're going to get trash out of there, electricity. Did we have enough power? And so there's not just one person that could figure that out. So that was an example of a project that we kind of took on, and I didn't know all the right answers either, but I knew the people that would know the right answer, right? So you kind of get them all in the right room together. And so it touched the police, fire department had to make sure they could still get fire trucks in case there was a fire. The police needed to know their hours, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, that's just one example, but those kind of things are going on all the time around here.
Fascinating.
So we learned that you assist the mayor with special projects. So what are some projects that we can expect in the future?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing that we are working on right now. So I just mentioned the police. We are going to build an addition to the current police station. So if you guys are familiar with Range Line Road, which is the main north-south artery in Carmel, it's going to be a building that faces Range Line Road is connected to the current police department, because this buildings that were in here around Civic Square were probably built in like 89 or so. And you can imagine how much the city has grown since 1989. I mean, I don't know what the population was, but it was probably less than 30,000 or around there. And we're approaching 100,000 right now. So the police department's like bursting at the seams. And so the city council recently approved a bond that'll help pay for that. And so right now I'm helping organize that effort, where you have to get architects together. You have to get, we had to do a bid project to get a construction manager that's going to construct it. We have to put a budget together. There are soil tests that need to be done. I mean, this just goes on. And I'm not an expert in building these things, but I am the guy that's kind of between the mayor and the actual project, right? So he's doing other strategic things, and I will help focus people on that. So that's, I guess that's at the forefront of my mind, because that's one of the several things that we're doing now that'll become visible in the next year and a half.
Okay, so with your military experience, what have you learned that helps you succeed in your current position?
I think through a lot of that experience in the military, I think you learn how to be patient. And these are kind of random things that maybe come to my mind, but you make a lot of decisions. And sometimes they're minor, sometimes they're major, but whenever a decision is or something comes to me for a decision, and I kind of learned this from the Army, the first thing I ask myself is, how much time do I have? So if I have more time to make a decision, then I'm going to take that time and consult as many people as I can. Now, sometimes there are situations where you need to make a decision right now, and you just do the best you can with the information that you have. And so I learned kind of how techniques for making decisions is one thing. I also learned that you cannot do things by yourself. You have to have coalitions, you have to have teams to put things together. When I was spent some time in Afghanistan, we had, it wasn't just, I was in the Army, so we didn't have the U.S. Army, but, there's the U.S. Army, there's the Air Force, there's Navy SEALs, there are Afghan National Forces, Afghan police, Afghan Army, and there are political officials that are there, and on and on. So you have to, and State Department officials. I mean, there's just a huge group of people trying to move in one area. So you need everybody. And so to try to pull people together and get them pointed in the same direction, making those good decisions. And then I think learning, and I think this is a skill, is learning how to stay calm when there's a lot of pressure on. You just got to kind of take a deep breath and be optimistic, even under the worst circumstances. Things are going to work out. I got smart people around me. Let's take a deep breath. And because the worst thing that happens is when things get tough is that people start to panic, right? Yeah. Panic spreads like wildfire. So the more calm you are, the more it calms other people. And I really believe that that's a technique or it's a learned skill or a learned attribute. I mean, there's a lot of other things, but those are, there's probably an endless list, but off the top of my head, those are a few examples of things I think that helped me today.
And then we correct me if I'm wrong, but you were living in Germany before you moved back over to Carmel. Mm-hmm. So what really got you connected to Carmel? Because that's a big jump to come to Carmel, Indiana, just from Germany.
It certainly is. I get asked that a lot because, in fact, I had never even heard of Carmel, Indiana, before I had an opportunity to come here. But there are several military folks that actually live in Carmel, in the Indianapolis area, and by coincidence, there's a retired two-star general that lives on the east side of Carmel, and he works downtown there in Indianapolis at Allison Transmissions as one of the vice presidents there now. And so when I was getting out of the Army, I spent my entire adult life in the Army, right? From the early 20s and until I was, I guess, 51 or 52 when I was getting out. So that's a long time. I'd never been in the civilian world since I worked at McDonald's probably, right? So I would call a lot of people that I knew that had already retired from the Army and say, hey, give me some advice. What should I be thinking about? What do you think about your current career? And one of the people I called was this gentleman named Dana Petard, who lives here in Carmel. And so I didn't ask him for a job or anything like that. I was just asking for advice. And so he gave me, hey, read this book, read that, buy some good suits, think about these things. Great advice. I wrote it down. We talked for an hour. And about 3 weeks later, he goes, hey, Crider, and I'm in Germany. He goes, I just was talking to the mayor of Carmel, and he said he's looking for somebody who's about to retire from the Army to see if they're interested in a position in the city. It's like, are you serious? It just sounded kind of like how weird that the mayor was actually looking for someone, in my position who had been in the Army a long time or retired as a colonel. And then come to find out that the gentleman who sat in this chair before me was also a retired colonel from the military. Because you remember, or you may know that Fort Benjamin Harrison was down there in Indianapolis, and that's where this guy had been. And so they had gotten connected. So the mayor kind of had a sense that, most guys who had spent a long time in the Army could do some of the things I described. Some of these soft skills you don't necessarily learn in college, but how to make decisions, how to solve problems, how to take a project from start to finish and hold people to a standard. And so this gentleman, Dana Batard, connected me to the mayor. The mayor actually called me in Germany and said, "Hey, you got to come to Carmel." And so I'm Googling Carmel, Indiana, and it pops up, #1 place to live in America, bike trails everywhere. I'm like, wow, this looks fantastic. And so since I'm from Kentucky originally, it's very close to home here in the Midwest, nice conservative area to live in with all kinds of things to do. And so I said, I am all in. And so the mayor flew me from Germany here to Carmel. I visited in the dead of winter, and I still said yes. And I accepted the position. That was 4 years ago, and I have zero regrets. I love it. My son graduated from Carmel High School last year or a year before. He just finished his freshman year at Butler, and he'll be starting his second year there. So I got him at the Carmel High School in time to do his sophomore through senior year there, and he loved it there as well. So that's kind of how the connection was made.
And then another thing about Germany, we learned that you witnessed the fall of the Berlin Wall. So obviously that's very impactful and meaningful, as it would mark the end of the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
So could you share what you took away from that experience?
Yeah, no, that was some serious fate, being in the right place at the right time. So my first, when you first go in the Army, I had to go to several schools before I actually went to a unit. And my first assignment at the time was to go to Fort Polk, Louisiana. So nobody's excited about going to Fort Polk, Louisiana, right? So, but I had a friend of mine, he goes, "Hey, I got this assignment to Germany." He didn't know it was Berlin. And so he said, "Hey, my wife just got pregnant and I don't want to go overseas. I want to stay here." And so I was like, "I'm supposed to go to Fort Polk. Are you sure?" He goes, "Yeah, let's trade." So you could do that. We traded assignments. And then about 4 months later, I found out I was going to Berlin, Germany. I'm like, this is really cool. I mean, how unique is this to go? I got there in October of 1989, like around the 20th or so. And I remember this because of the historical stuff that happened. And on the 9th of November, they opened up Checkpoint Charlie and started letting people through. So it happened like right after I got there. And then we spent the next 3 years literally watching people chip away at the wall, break it down, and this slow reunification process. Actually, I guess it happened pretty quick. Reunification process between East and West Germany, and to become one. That was a really super experience that the older I get, the more I look back and appreciate it. But it did demonstrate to me personally how important freedom is to people, right? They want to be free to choose, to make decisions, and they could not come across that border fast enough once the checkpoint was open. I mean, there just really wasn't any stopping them. I think the momentum got so high that there was no enthusiasm to keep them apart anymore. So I think watching how much people sincerely appreciate freedom up close from people who had been denied to made a difference. It was what I take away from that most.
Great. Thank you for sharing with that.
Yeah, thank you.
That
So after visiting 30 countries during your service, have there been any that like kind of stuck out with you and you still think about?
Oh man, I think there have been, the country that I thought, and just because I thought it was one of the most beautiful, was Italy. I really enjoyed going to Italy. And when you live there in Germany, it's easy to get around to some of these places, right? So it's kind of like if you live in Indiana and it's easy to get to Michigan or Tennessee or even Georgia. I mean, it's far, but it's not that far, right? So we did get to travel to a lot of really cool countries. So I did get to go down to Italy a couple of times. Just the entire country is a history book. I mean, especially if you get an opportunity to go to Rome or Pisa, any of those places, they're just beautiful. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoy the second country that's really across the way from Italy was Croatia. We went to the coast of Croatia, and this was a family vacation. And the water there is like the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, you can just see 15 feet down, just absolutely a beautiful place with a lot of Italian influence on it. That was really neat. And then I guess I call it business trips. So it is military official Army trips. I did get an opportunity to go to the country of Georgia, to Tbilisi, Georgia, and went up into a lot of the Baltic nations and Lithuania and Latvia, which were not at all like what I thought. When I think I got an appreciation when I went to some of these Baltic countries, because if you think of, or at least I did, when I thought of Lithuania and Latvia, you think all those were Russian, or as part of the old Soviet Union, which it was. But when I went up there and met a lot of folks there, I mean, they are completely different folks. They're completely different people than the Russians. And so that kind of gave me an appreciation for how unique people in different countries are. And then probably without saying, I did, certainly this was a business trip. I spent a lot of time in Iraq. I went there 3 times, and that, I probably spent the most time with the people in the country of Iraq. When you get to know people on a personal level, it was really eye-opening to see that, more people that just wanted, some level of freedom to send their kids to school. They want to be safe. They want to save money for the future. And you're like, well, their culture is different, but human being to human being, we weren't really that different, right? I mean, everybody kind of wants to live in a safe environment and have some degree of security, a little bit of health care so that, take care of your family. So that was definitely an eye opener to be there. And I still have, I'm really not on Facebook much anymore, in fact, but I still have at least 3 or 4 folks that I keep in touch with that still live in Baghdad. There are Iraqis there that are just some super nice people. And maybe once a year, they'll send me a note on Facebook Messenger. How's it going? What's happening? And I'm like, how's it going there? And we get an update back and forth. So I spent a lot of time there, but that was definitely an eye opener. And it's a place that you can't really go to. And I'm rambling a little bit, but that country, it's a shame that they're kind of in the situation that they are for whatever reason, because Baghdad is really an extremely historic city. There's the Tigris and the Euphrates River run right through it. There's tons of oil there. There's biblical history from one end of that country to the other. Wouldn't it be great if it was actually free and safe? And I mean, the tourism alone, I used to tell you, just from tourism, you guys would all be millionaires, just on the tourism industry, not to mention the oil and all the water they have. So it's just really a shame that it's not working out that way for them, at least not today. But that was a real eye opener, I think.
So overall, how has your perspective changed after serving in the military for nearly 30 years?
I think I have a real appreciation, and I may have mentioned this some earlier, but for people and for how important it is to keep good people around you, that are close to you, whether that's people that work for you. You want to hire and seek out people that are quality. And it's really a lot of things that you can't learn in college, right? As I was telling my son this, I mean, there's things you learn when you go to college, like maybe accounting or history or business things, whatever you learn. But there's things like, and I mentioned, decision making, being patient, never quitting, being persistent, being forgiving of other people, when they make mistakes, so you encourage them to keep trying. These are things that you don't really learn in college. And so I think I gained an appreciation for a lot of these soft skills, right? You're not going to go to college and have a class on, how to do some of these things, but you can learn how to do them, right? They're not necessarily you're born with it or you're not born with it. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that you can learn how to do those things. I mean, I'm generally an introvert, but I have given tons of speeches. I don't seek them out, but a lot I had to do it, right? I had to do things that were uncomfortable. And so the Army, by the virtue of being a leader in the Army, it put me in a lot of uncomfortable situations. And I learned that, I didn't necessarily enjoy that, but I learned I can do it if I have to. So I would encourage you to, as you go along, encourage everyone to kind of leave your comfort zone, do things that push you, that scare you a little bit. I mean, to me, you should always be a little bit uncomfortable. If you're always in a position where you're like, I'm not sure if I can do this, I would tell you you're in the right spot. All right. So you should always have the little knot in your stomach wondering, man, have I bitten off more than I can chew? If that's how you feel, you're probably in a good spot because you're pushing yourself. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what comes to mind anyway.
Yeah, I think you basically answered our next question too. What advice do you have for the youth and citizens of Carmel? Is there anything else you want to add?
I'll give you, there's probably more than one, but let me give you one thing that comes to mind. And the students there at Carmel appreciate this because there's a program called, Make Good Decisions. You guys may be familiar with that. But aside from the program, which is great, I would encourage people to stop, think, and make good decisions, because in your life, there are a lot of, I would say bad or negative things are going to happen to all of us, right? That's not our fault at all. We could be doing the complete right thing, and next thing you know, you find out that you've got some kind of illness or disease that you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. Or you're driving a car and you're doing all the right things, but somebody pulls in front of you, and next thing you know, you have a car accident. And even if you're not injured, you're like, oh man, I got to deal with insurance and all this. So there's all kinds of things that are going to happen to you that really are other people's fault or circumstances, and you have no control over it. So spend a lot of time making sure the things that you can control, that you make positive decisions for yourself and other people around you. And you see a lot of people that get older, get to be my age, and they're just in a bad spot. It's like, oh, I knew I should have invested money when I was in my 20s. What was I thinking? If they made a bad decision, right? You can't undo it. Or it can be, obviously, there are things like alcohol and drugs that you get too far into, and then you're a bum later on. Like, oh man, you have control over that, right? You don't have to do those things, or you don't have to spend all your money, right? You can invest some for later. You can make a really good decision about who you spend the rest of your life with, right? So these are important decisions that I would encourage people to stop and think and make good ones, because there's already going to be enough bad things that happen to us. So that would be one piece of life advice I would give to you, is do your best and make positive decisions, and you will end up okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today and providing such great advice. I think we've all learned something about, just something about life and something we can carry on for the rest of our lives. And so we all greatly appreciate that, and we greatly appreciate your service for this country. Anybody have any further questions or anything else to add?
No, I just, piggybacking. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you.
Yeah, really, thank you so much. And if you ever need anything from the Carmel Mayor's Youth Council, we're here. So just let us know. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you guys are a great group, and I really appreciate what you're doing here and how you're so active in the community. That's a good decision you guys make. You're going to get out and get uncomfortable. So no, thank you for inviting me to speak to you guys. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you to Jim Crider for joining us today. Thank you guys for viewing. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and leave a comment on who you want to see next. And again, I'm Trevor.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Claire.